Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a video about a type of item that I don't normally discuss on this channel, and that's a flashlight. This is the Lumintop FW3A, or rather FW3T, which is the titanium version of the same flashlight. If you are, if you were, let's say, looking for a comprehensive review on this flashlight and you stumbled across my channel and you don't know who I am 99.9% of the time a knife channel. At over 1,000 uploads relating to knives, I'm confident speaking on knives. I know what I'm talking about, or at least I'd like to think that I do. But when it comes to flashlights, nope, I'm brand new to this. This is a flashlight also that has capabilities that are far beyond my usage habits and in some ways my comprehension. So this is not going to be a comprehensive review. I'm not capable of giving you that. But I want to be fair and not waste anybody's time. So if you're looking for that, I'm going to direct you to Advanced Knife Bro's YouTube channel, who is much better at delivering those types of reviews on things like flashlights because he knows about them. And I'll also make sure that you've got links to his review on this light. For everybody else, what's this video going to be? I've had this light for a few days. This is essentially going to be first impressions and my story of how I came to acquire this, why I bought it, but why I bought it, right? What was the deal? Well, all of a sudden, this flashlight. That's what this is going to be. Thanks so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, get your hands on some cool stickers and some other benefits, there is, of course, a link down in the description. Your support would mean the world to me. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. That would mean the world to me as well. All right, real quick here, let's go ahead and get a measurement. I have no idea how flashlight people like to see this stuff, but for my knife audience, I'll do it the same way I usually do. Overall length is 3.6 inches. Doesn't have a blade, so we're not going to measure the blade. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against some common items because I don't really know what I'm doing here. Here's a quarter. Here's a thing of chapstick. Here is a AA battery. And because this is a knife channel, here it is up against the Spyderco Para 3, closed and open, which you just measure it by the handle, so there you go. Here it is up against the only other flashlight that I've ever owned that's not attached to my keys. This is the EGTAC D3C Clicky Tie, which is something that I was attracted to. Many of you will know this because I like titanium and I like textured titanium. So a lot of my favorite knives, like this Hinder XM18 here, are outfitted with textured titanium scales. That is exactly why I'm, if I was going to pick up a flashlight, I'd pick up something like this. You can see there it's kind of the same idea with the EGTAC, right? So for a long time, this was the flashlight that I had hanging around. And there are reasons that I like it, reasons that I don't like it, right? I like rechargeable things. I don't like the older flashlights that have been a part of my life. Have taken just AAA or AA batteries, and I hate it when they run out of batteries and I gotta go find more. I just don't want to mess with that. I don't care how good they are. I know people probably want to tell me I don't care. I'm not trying to be mean, but if I'm going to dip into this flashlight world, and I've got plenty of people helping me out with this, which I'm going to get to here in a second, I am absolutely 100% not interested in flashlights that require disposable batteries. I want to be able to recharge it. That's just what I like. This guy has a rechargeable battery. The battery inside of it actually has a micro USB port, and you can recharge it, and that's great, right? There were little things that bothered me. I use a different flashlight during knife reviews when I open things up and I look on the inside, because the beam on that one initially is a little bit less powerful, which is great for people trying to actually see the inside of the knife and not just a blinding burst of light. This one, right when it turns on, it's something around 500 lumens, which is far and away too bright to use in a knife review, and honestly that's way too bright for anything I might use it for. And by no means am I suggesting the only purpose of a flashlight in my life is just to look on the inside of a knife. It's just something that you guys will see me using it for on camera. But a flashlight is something that, in my opinion, pretty much everybody can gain the benefit of. Right? There's a lot of weird EDC items in this EDC world, and it's all interesting in its own way, but things are more or less useful, right? I love the idea of carrying an EDC pry bar for a while until I found out I really don't use this, right? Flashlights, I use it definitely more often than almost any other item in this world besides a knife. A knife I definitely carry every day because there's a good chance that I'm going to use it. There's less of a chance I'm going to need a flashlight, but there's substantially more of a chance I'm going to need a flashlight than any other thing, any other item in this world that I've experienced. So I do have an interest in flashlights, and for whatever reason, I find these types of flashlights, these EDC-sized flashlights, to be aesthetically appealing because the enthusiast community that surrounds them is similar in a lot of ways to the enthusiast community that surrounds folding knives. So we have interesting materials, complex designs, right? Reasons for, you know, diving into the intricacies and all this, right? On the surface, this looked super interesting to me, and you know, at the end result was that I could end up with an item that allows me to do simple things like see things in the dark, right? So that's my reasoning there. I picked this guy up and it was okay. The thing clicks on and it's way too bright. So how do you make it less bright? Well, it turns out when the cap's screwed all the way in, it automatically turns on with that maximum brightness. When you unscrew it a little bit, it starts off in like a moonlight mode, and then like a soft click will turn on. So essentially, you know, whether I'm using it for a knife review or I was using it for you know, just EDCing it, there were a lot of steps there that bothered me a little bit. That's not really that big of a deal, but it was enough to make me think, that's not my favorite thing in the world. I kind of just want it to turn on with the brightness that I want it to turn on at that moment, right? This flashlight, 6 minutes in. You guys know the name of this, but the story behind it apparently isn't. There's much more to this, but I'm going to give you the quick version. Apparently, something called the budget light forums, which is where a lot of, you know, enthusiast people who know way, way, way more than I do congregate and talk about what they want in a flashlight, or what they currently have, what they think is good, what they think is bad, right? It's a lot the same as some of the knife forums, at least from the outside. That's the way that I look at it. But this was essentially a community-created light, as far as I understand it. Lumintop, they you know, manufactured it, and then there was a special person. God, I'm so sorry. Flashlight people, Onderil something was the person responsible for the interface. I don't know. It has a very interesting, very community-preferred interface, and then there are a lot of little teeny tiny details that the community wanted to make sure you know, that were created correctly, right? So being somebody who was interested in changing out or getting something different than this guy, honestly, for no more reason than just wanting an excuse to buy something new and different. That's something that we all deal with like every single day. If you're watching my channel, there's a good chance that you're just like me. But it was intriguing because this community created flashlight that had looks that were preferable to me and a size that was preferable to me, came in materials that were preferable to me, and at a price that was definitely preferable to me. These come in at base in aluminum at 40 bucks. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but these come in many different materials. Aluminum, different colors of aluminum. Then you have copper and you have brass. You have titanium, both polished and tumbled, which is actually what you're seeing here, the tumbled variant. There's stainless steel, and then there's a mixture of different body sizes and body materials that you can use to customize and whatever. We'll get to that. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. Absolutely. That's something that is very, very interesting to me. And honestly, I didn't know anything about this light until I started bringing up my interest in flashlights to a group that I am in on Instagram, and also to my Discord community, which you can check out my Discord down in the description. There's a lot of great people there, a lot of helpful people there. A lot of different people gave me a lot of different recommendations based on the range that I was wanting to be in for price and my aesthetic preferences and my material preferences, but one that was a general consistent between a few people, actually Lavana the Knife Nuts podcast, Advanced Knife Bro, and my new friend Zach from my Discord, different than Zach's stuff. They all showed me a bunch of different things, but this was something that was either directly recommended or it was something that I found out that they owned in their collection and had generally high opinions of. So this pushed me towards some additional research. I found out that while the interface is something that's your average light enthusiast is really that's something that they really enjoy. To somebody like me who's a newcomer, it is quite complicated. In fact, there's a lot of modes and information, and so that was the first thing that initially turned me off, was Even though it's not really that expensive, and by the way, the titanium comes in a little bit more expensive at about $95 or something like that. The idea of a very complicated user interface is somebody who really just wanted something, right, coming into this community. It's the same thing as people coming into the knife community. They really just want to start off with something simple. So I was looking at this and thinking, I like how that looks. That's all I can judge it on, is how it looks, right? I like the price. That complicated user interface. I don't know. That sounds really fumbly, and it's part of the reason that I'm looking for a new flashlight over this thing, which is substantially simpler, and I still was frustrated with initially just little quirky things, right, with this. So I do some more research, and I find out that because this was essentially a community-created light, one of the biggest things that people wanted was the ability to customize it easily with parts that were readily available and inexpensive, and I found that to be very much the case. That's what hooked me with this. That's what really got my attention going. That's what really got my interest going, was the idea that I could have a different bezel, a different size of body, a different material of body, right? A different tail cap, different optics, the little glow gasket things. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. One of the things that I always found interesting was seeing pictures on Instagram of different colored gaskets and just interesting little things, or I didn't know that they were gasket. I just saw the different lights coming out of the flashlight, and I was like, oh, neat. I don't know what that is. That looks nice, right? The cheapest route is actually a fairly useless glow gasket that's interesting but doesn't serve much of a purpose other than, the 3-second window that you could find your light in the dark if you use it and then drop it, right? It's neat, whatever. A lot of people have tritium inserts in the optics, or secondary auxiliary LEDs. That's what people are more so into, and I found a lot of this out by talking with Levon of the Knife Nuts podcast. So that was all interesting. But anyways, that's really what drew me in, was all of these little parts, all of these little things, and I thought, wow, what an opportunity! What a great opportunity to get something that is visually appealing, inexpensive, very powerful. Apparently, this thing has a maximum output of 2,800 lumens, which is freaking way more than I would ever need. I don't know that I would ever need more than 300 lumens, but it's something that people celebrate, and because of that celebration, I'm interested in it, right? The user interface looks pretty complicated, but I kind of saw it as a challenge. Maybe I can figure all this stuff out and understand why people want these things. This is a good gateway for me. So I decided to go ahead and purchase it. And I'll tell you guys this. Number one, 12 minutes in, maybe I should have mentioned this right off the bat. For anybody who is not familiar with these types of flashlights, many of them use a lithium-ion battery, which is something that is worth researching, the pros and cons of and the dangers associated with it. Once again, somebody I have to thank for this information, because I am new and I needed to hear it. Is that they're kind of dangerous. In fact, they can be really dangerous if they're not handled properly. Little things like putting them in upside down, can ruin your flashlight. Leaving them on the charger too long, or leaving them, there's little things that can happen with these batteries and actually cause them to catch on fire or explode, and that's putting it lightly and simply. I'm actually going to be linking things that you should know about lithium-ion batteries before you jump headfirst into this like I did without really understanding everything, because that's really important. It's as cringy as it sounds to say that these flashlights can be dangerous. It is the case for a number of different reasons. That high of output on a flashlight is enough to blind somebody or at least really injure them. And yeah, you can injure yourself or somebody else, by improper care or mishandling these batteries. So yeah, before you buy something like this, if you are brand new to it like I was, then check that out. For everybody who already knows this stuff, then okay, yeah, you can ignore it for sure. 18650 battery, by the way, which is I just recently came to sort of understand what that was, but there you go. There's the information on the battery there. Let's go ahead and we'll turn this on and keep it a little bit bright for the remainder of the review here, or the overview. So anyway, so I get the light and I think, wow, that user interface is, or at least all the little functionalities and things are super duper complicated. But what I'd like to do, there was a temptation to sit down with this 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 info guide thing and go through every last little function and try to understand and memorize this interface. Found, polarizing reviews of it. People who are generally into flashlights seem to prefer specifically this interface that is apparently available on a wide variety of different popular flashlights with the electronic tail switch, which is still something I'm trying to understand. And a lot of people consider it to be very fumbly and unnecessary and have way too many that, again, there's a lot of things that I find, similar to the knife world. There's just preferences depending on how much experience you have with any particular item. My strategy was to not look at the guide at all and just try and use the one button that's on here, which is the tail switch, and figure out as much as I could. Something that I found very pleasing right off the bat is that I could push it once and it just turned on. Pushing it again turns it off. Great, that's what I want. I have another keychain flashlight where you actually have to hold the button down to turn it on, and while it's not that big of a deal, it's kind of annoying as somebody who's used to lights that just turn on when you push the button. The next thing I figured out just by screwing around with it is by holding the button down, it will ramp up, and then by releasing it and holding it down again, it will ramp back down. Once you turn this off and back on, it remembers the exact output you were most recently at. That right there made me feel really, really good about this light. If I knew nothing else about this light, never discovered any other, different functions or anything about it, it would at least do that, and it was simple enough that I could remember how to make that work. I played with it a little more, clicked it and held the button a bunch of times, got into some weird modes that I didn't understand. The thing was flickering and flashing, and I was like, okay. But every time I turned it back off and then turned it back on, it seemed to go right back into the standard mode. As I found out, there are actually different modes that it can get into where it stays in that mode until you put the proper command in to make it come back out. Anyways, it was time that I looked at the manual. So I went through and started clicking through different modes and figuring things out, and truthfully, as of right now, I still don't understand everything. Temperature calibration, all that's beyond me. But things like getting into the modes like 1, 2, and then hold, and it puts it into this mode where right here you're actually seeing a thunderstorm simulation where it randomly flickers. What's the purpose of that? I don't know, but I think it's really neat, and I find myself just letting it sit there and do that by itself and watching it, and it's fun, right? It can suddenly burst to maximum, so you got to be careful and not point it at your face. That sounds silly, but yeah, it's a powerful flashlight. It definitely is dangerous. I understand it's kind of cringy to keep saying that over and over again, but I know that there are going to be people who really want to jump into this and don't consider these little things, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. Anyways, double clicking it cycles through these different menus. For example, this is a candle mode. Another couple of clicks and we have the bike flasher. We've got a party strobe, a tactical strobe, which is not something I'll ever use, and then we are back to the thunderstorm. So anyways, there's a bunch of little things like this. You've got modes that tell you, how much battery life is left, and there's lockout modes and things like that, and of course thermal configuration, stuff like that. There's the ability to change how it ramps, whether you want smooth or stepped ramping. I kind of like the smooth. Anyway, there's all this stuff. But I found out it really wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I mean, as complicated as that looks, it really wasn't that bad. And while I still don't understand everything, and I definitely don't understand all of the functions for everything, like what circumstance I would use it in, it's intriguing. It's intriguing as an object that will allow me to learn, because I am actually interested in learning about the flashlight world. And I recognize that it is substantially more complicated and in many ways a lot more dangerous than the folding knife world, right? But there were some people on a live stream that expressed some interest in me getting more into flashlights and showing some things, and I'm willing to tiptoe into that. I'm not saying that you guys are suddenly going to get 2 flashlight reviews a week, but if I were to throw an interesting one in once a month or once every couple of months to kind of gauge if people were actually interested, then that's something that I'm interested in. So, what are my first impressions of this light? It definitely feels high quality, but I don't really have enough experience to tell you if this is actually high quality versus other flashlights. It's definitely the most powerful flashlight and the most capable flashlight that I have ever handled, and it seems to be one that people generally like, whether they are new or they are a veteran to the flashlight world. I have been carrying this around the house and just sort of pretending that the power's out at night. I live in Kansas. The power does go out in summer and in winter because of the storms that we get here, so flashlights are definitely important. But yeah, just to kind of get a feel for things like the tail stand and exactly how much light I might need to, say, make a sandwich at 10 o'clock at night. You know, yeah, I mean, I've been using it for little things like that. It is comfortable to carry. If you wear tighter pants, it's definitely not going to be, but for me, it's just fine. We didn't weigh it, but I'll weigh it for you guys here real quick. With the battery, which I imagine is going to be roughly the same unless you have a smaller body. It comes in at, whoops, 4.3 ounces. That's fine. That's right within the realm of what I like to carry for a pocket knife. So, I mean, I understand I am adding that weight to my pocket knife, but it'll be in a separate pocket and it's not enough to bother me. It is kind of fun to play with. You do have to be cognizant of what mode it's on. You don't want to be looking directly at it when it brightens up. And occasionally you might get yourself into a mode where you're not really sure what is happening and you're going to have to refer to the manual. Fortunately, you can get a PDF version on your phone and just kind of have it at the ready. I found that to be pretty rare. Another thing that can happen, something that I want to, you know, use as just a sort of a cautionary thing, is a lot of times they call these really powerful flashlights pocket rockets, and that's because if you accidentally turn it on, in this case to get it to turbo, which is the maximum output, once it's on, you click it twice and it goes instantly to turbo, which is very, very bright. You can see it instantly charge that super cool glow gasket. If that goes off in your pocket, you're not going to be aware of it for a little bit, but by the time you are aware of it, you're already going to be burning. Not actually burning, but it's going to hurt. That happened to me once. And that's when I had to learn about how to sort of make sure that it's in, they have like a muggle mode, which is to make sure that people don't, you know, excessively injure themselves if they don't know what they're doing. And then there's also like a lockout mode. Yeah, I had to learn about that. You know, so you do have to take the time. If you're gonna invest in something like this, it's not just, oh yeah, go buy it because it's inexpensive. This is something that is dangerous and it is complicated, and you have to be aware of this stuff, the dangers with the battery and the proper care and use of the battery, and proper care and use of the flashlight itself if you're gonna actually carry this. And so, what do I think of it? Truthfully, I really enjoy this. It has made me infinitely more interested in the flashlight world. I would love to give you guys a comprehensive review of this flashlight after I've carried and used it for a few weeks or months even, which is probably more likely the case. And I'm also interested in exploring the rest of the EDC flashlight world because of this light. I had no idea that things had gotten so interesting and so complicated with flashlights. And while this definitely isn't like the interface that's on this or the entire design, it's not something that's brand new. In fact, I think this has been around for like a year at least, or maybe I'm wrong. It's been around for a while, right? So I'm late to the game, and there are definitely flashlights that are more powerful, right? But does more powerful equal better, right? What does it mean? What is my money going towards in the flashlight world, right? How much do I actually need? These are all things that I'm interested in exploring for myself and then sharing my thoughts with you, but you guys are going to have to give me some time because I am a beginner and I understand less than 5% of the details that go into an object like this. I can't sit here and say, yeah, I recommend this to somebody who's new to flashlights. And perhaps I should have brought this up much earlier, but it's like if you're asking me, can I recommend this? This will be linked in my description from now on as the flashlight that I carry, but I want to be very clear as a reference point. I'm not actually openly recommending this just yet. Mainly because this is an inexpensive item and that's great, but it's also kind of dangerous and I don't want to just, yeah, go ahead. I will link the battery, well actually the light that comes with a battery that's safe to use. I will link the charger that I use, which is this guy right here. It's not expensive. It is something, it's very, very important that you use the right type of charger and insert the battery correctly. I'll also leave a link to lithium-ion battery safety and things to think about, right? And again, Advanced Knife Bros, much more comprehensive review of this item. If I'm going to talk about stuff like this and I'm going to get into the world of the enthusiast flashlight, you know, the flashlight enthusiast community, I think something that always has to be talked about is how dangerous the item is. I feel like these are way more dangerous than folding knives, and I honestly think that there are flashlights that are around the same price that are probably much better for a beginner. Probably flashlights that would have been much better for me, but because I am who I am, I can't really help that this is something that I wanted to go for. There are also flashlights that are substantially more expensive, just like folding knives, stuff that has more handwork, more, you know, essentially just more detail work, more exotic materials, things like that, right? I mean, it's not necessarily all about power output. There's little things like that that I'm coming to learn, not because I came to that conclusion on my own, but because I've got some great people to talk to and ask questions. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. This was the longest first impression and overview video that I've ever done. But I wanted to talk about this and kind of gauge and see what you guys thought about me talking about flashlights, at least, making sure that people know that I am very new to this world. It will be very occasional and not something that you constantly see. But anyways, gosh, I hope I covered everything there. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, or at least found it mildly entertaining. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that metal complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.